This next part of art we're looking at is Fauve art and Cubism, very early part of the 20th century, and made possible really because of what Impressionism did and Post-Impressionism did, led into this. Fauve is a French word. I'm not sure I'm saying it right, but it is a French word for wild beasts. And they were nicknamed that because they were just taking color and shape in all kinds of different directions than people were used to, sort of like wild beasts. And color was used just for its own purposes, for describing light and space rather than actually what was there. It was not representational at all. It was more used to communicate an emotional state for the artist. Cubism, as you can see there, seemed to just take it even simpler. They didn't try to be representational at all and usually broke things down into simple shapes and then would put them back in new and unusual ways, usually as if it were from a different perspective and a different point of view, and didn't use color at all the way it was really out there in the world, like Impressionists did. They still used color in the real way. There are many different styles, but they all had these things in common. They were experimenting with color and with the paint and with brushstrokes, and they weren't representative of nature, and the space seemed to be flattened somewhat rather than kind of going back perspective-wise and using unusual colors and textures. So Fauvism first, this is Henri Matisse. We've seen this kind of pointillism before, but now you can see why it's sort of wild beastish, because the colors are insane. Way more freewheeling color. The points do merge together to give you an overall picture of what's going on, but it's doesn't even try to be realistic. Each color can actually be observed to stand on its own. This one is a brightness and vibrating motion with all these brushstrokes, and you see it, even though it's a landscape, there's like a flatness to it, that it all looks like it's on the same plane, even though you know it's water going back to the clouds in the background. There seems to be a flatness to it, a loss of idea of space. And the vibrating motion is way more important than any detail or perspective that you can see in this painting. Colors are not natural at all. This is André Derain. Again, okay, not representational. It's just got this almost unnatural look to it, flatness of space. Again, it's a landscape, but it all looks like it's like on the same plane. And the brushwork is very strong, very contrasty, and you can almost see with the use of the yellows and the oranges, you can see that this is maybe a really warm place. A portrait that André painted of Henri Matisse. Its detailed likeness was not a goal here. Again, it's this emotional use of color. It's to express more of a state of mind. There are lots of visual brushstrokes here and much use of saturated color. This is Henri Matisse. Unnatural coloring, not even trying to be realistic, and everything, like, because the lines are so flowing, they look like they're all trying to interconnected to each other, all these figures. Complementary colors are used next to each other to give this really vibrant sense of color, and there's a flatness in the space. I am sorry, I don't know how to say this person's name. Well, a lot of these are French. But he uses the Fauvist color here, but he does try to be a little bit more representational. From here, you do get much more of a feeling of a landscape and space, not like the other ones. It's more realistic than the other Fauvist, but it has the same use of color and the same really strong brush strokes. There's a little bit of a sense of an impressionistic style in there, but with the Fauvist overtones. Raoul Dufay, it's like the Impressionists. He liked to paint gardens and flora, but it's a very, very close space. Raw brushwork, non-natural color, and it's free from the actual physical appearances of what something might be. Simplified forms, using color for, again, its emotional impact. rather than what that color really is. This is kind of a dark painting. It's like the Fauvis in that it used thick paint and very strong brushwork. The colors, however, are much more muted here, and in a sense, the darkness of it really speaks to the pain of the clown and what might be hiding behind that face, what's hiding behind the makeup. This particular artist tended also to portray prostitutes, wanderers, physical laborers, people that were really what be considered at the bottom of the social ladder in France, disenfranchised, and the darkness of their character. Again, the emotional impact of these dark colors. This one, absolutely no real sense of space. It's Fauvist color, simple forms. Now, Braque is saddled both areas. He worked really as a Fauvist painter, and then was also one of the leaders in what our second session is going to be about, which is Cubism. And you can see that beginning here, where there's some different strokes, different diagonals written here, different shapes drawn up in there. At the same time, you get these really sinuous forms. It is looking ahead to his famous involvement in Cubism. Henri Matisse, dancers, very exuberant. You can just feel the life in them. They're distorted for expressing the joy of the dance. They go all the way to the edges of the frame as if this painting can't contain their energy and their vibrancy and their life. Another Matisse, non-naturalistic. This is actually his studio. You don't get a very good sense of perspective like you would for a room. Like on the left-hand side, you don't even see where the two walls come together. It's as if, even though you have the floor there, the walls are kind of fading out. It's completely saturated crimson color. You can see some of his paintings, some of his sculptures there. The perspective is very strange if you look at the table in front and compare it to some of the perspective on the walls. It's very different. It gives almost a feeling of being unsettled in that room. Plus, it's so vibrantly red. This is an extremely famous painting by Matisse. It's his wife. And simply, it is called just Green Stripe. Obviously, non-natural color. He's got color blocks behind there that totally take away from any feeling of space. He's got her face divided into the shadow side with the cool colors and the light side with the little bit warmer colors. He's got highly visual brushstrokes in there, giving this sense, even though she's kind of staring out at us in a dispassionate way, the whole painting gives us a feeling of emotion and electricity because of his use of color. I'm going to take a look at Cubism, which followed close on the heels of Fauvism. As I said, Braque. This is called Girl with a Cross. And you can see the cross there down at the lower part. And you can, as you look at it, he's divided the face up into parts and then kind of put it together in a new way, which many times is characteristic of Cubism, where there's fractured things put together, and you can recognize things coming out of the geometric shapes. Like in her face, you can see there's a nose, you can see kind of the mouth, but they're put together in very unusual ways, to the point of complete abstraction. Another George Braque. Con clarinetta, there is a musical instrument in there, sort of in the middle. You can see the clarinet, but he's taken all kinds of things. There's a bunch of grapes in there. You can see that this is part of a still life that he has broken up and put together in a really exciting way with different diagonals and crossing and lines. It's a very beautiful use of color and form, very typical of Cubism. Paul Cézanne, this is a quarry, stone quarry. He spent one part of his life working at a stone quarry. He just verging on Cubism. You can see the strong cross lines going together, the trees. There's the interplay of the blue with the orange makes both of those colors complementary, pop out of there, and really draw the eye all the way around this composition. Paul Cézanne, Turning Road. Getting onto Cubism, again, even though this is a landscape, there is still this feeling of flatness to this, just like Cubism is really famous for. It looks like a straightforward landscape, but the colors don't mix for a landscape. It seems like they're all like on the same plane. There's a little bit of spatial distortion going on. Everything seems to be equally far away with detail and brushstrokes. Let's see. Juan Gris, Coffee Grinder and Glass. Amazing still life. Once you sit down and concentrate it, you can see the things that he had in his still life. There's some blinds there. There's the coffee grinder and the glass, a newspaper. But they're put together in amazingly interesting ways. Destructured and put together so the perspective really kind of sets you off guard. Because the table, if you see the table there, there's the edge of it, and then the bottom right. The table's kind of tipped towards you. The glass is on an even scale. You can see the blinds take the angle a different way than the edge of the table. So you have a lot of things upsetting the perspective here a little bit. Plus the color is gorgeous. He uses some beautiful color in there, almost like a jewel-like color. Again, this is Juan Gris. He is a huge fan of Pablo Picasso. He learned a lot under Pablo Picasso. They were painting at the same time. He deconstructs and uses different viewpoints at the same time. It's very geometric and almost crystalline because of those very strong diagonal lines. It's almost crystalline in shape with the way he's broken it up. And it's very structured, on the other hand, with the diagonals, and very freewheeling with the ovals in the face. And he does pay tribute to Picasso, and I don't know if you can see it way down in the bottom right. He does say, this is in homage to Pablo Picasso. He was felt very much indebted to him because of his learning underneath Pablo. Juan Gris again, look at that color. Beautiful color, just like the one with the glass and the coffee grinder. He combines indoor and outdoor here. He's got the window there in the background showing the outdoor stuff, and then bringing it in with some of that blue on the right-hand side. He refracts the light coming in from the outside over the surface of this still life. And then there's a canopy of leaves across the top that not only is on the window looking out, but it is on the inside. So it's a combination of seeing different objects, different perspectives of the same thing. He brings the outdoors in a very interesting, unique way. This is Paul Klee, Red Balloon. I have to confess that Paul Klee is one of my favorites. I love the work that he does. Again, we have the idea on Cubism of deconstructed shapes. This is a landscape. It's a cityscape background. But with all of his lines and his colors, of course, everything brings you back to the red balloon, which of course is the point of this painting. But you do get different viewpoints of this cityscape. It's a display of abstract style and structure, which is very typical of Cubism. Fernand Léger, this is House Under the Trees. If sometimes the names, you're just going, I didn't see the house and I didn't see the trees right away. But the houses are near the bottom, and they are, again, deconstructed, and they're given various impressions in the landscape. You can actually see the trees on the left-hand side, those little curvy green objects climbing up the side of the left. Those would be the trees. And also on the right-hand side, you have the same kind of curvy objects. And the houses are towards the middle where you have like the squares, but it's been wonderfully taken apart and put back together, giving you different forms, different shapes, and guiding your eye around this beautiful painting. Once you stop and look at it, you can say, oh, yeah, I can see that. And it's beautiful use of color, beautiful use of color. Fernand Léger, this is Stairway. It was patterned repetition. The black and white ovals that you see in there towards the top, the black and white ovals are actually the heads of the humanoids that are descending the stairs. And they're walking up and down these stairs, which are the forms and shapes that you see in the red and the blue. He did seem to like stairs, Fernand Léger did, and they do appear in a lot of his paintings. Mondrian, he calls it Composition X, but really it's trees. He deconstructed trees and then put them back together, looking at just their purest lines, purest shapes. You have the roundness and the circularness of the trees themselves balanced off delightfully with some of the verticals and the diagonals of what the tree trunks do and what the branches do. So it's a really nice composition balancing off different forms against each other. Piet Mondrian again. He has gone, you can see from his previous picture, he had the circular and the vertical. Here he's simplified them even more into, you can see again the shapes, the circular shapes and the vertical shapes all kind of working together and balancing off against each other. He's getting more and more into the abstracted shapes of the trees, even more and more, bringing out just what is the barest representation of what those trees are, and then he gets that down on canvas. I really like this one, Pablo Picasso. It shows his influence of African sculpture. The face very much resembles masks from people groups in Liberia and Cote d'Ivoire, just like their wooden masks, and it shows the influence he was experiencing at this time in his life of the Africans. Okay, no class today, but we do have a homework assignment. I want you in your book. I'll have a video for this. We're going to look at some really wonderful pictures of Fauvists and Cubism in the PowerPoint. But I want to go over the homework assignment. In the book, there are a couple of different pages that you'll be doing your homework assignment from. It's 41 through 44, 133 to 136, and 141 to 144. And in particular, on page 41 to 44, on page 44, you have an exercise, create a colorful collage. Now that says that you should go ahead and paint pieces of paper different solid colors. If you want to do that, you can, and then you would cut them out and paint them down according to your theme. Or you can use solid colors that you already have. For instance, if you have construction paper that's already colored, you can cut out from that. So you're not restricted to doing your own painted paper. And it can just be on regular, if you do decide to paint your paper, it can just be on regular paper, nothing fancy. And then just follow the instructions there for a painted collage. The next one is just a compare and contrast kind of idea that I'm trying to get you used to, so that you start developing an artistic eye. Instead of just looking at it, you start thinking about what's in it and comparing it to things that you know. And so this is on page 135. It's a compare and contrast, as well as the questions. And then finally, on page 144, it says a cubist approach to drawing. That needs 2 drawings and a still life setup. And the instructions, just read the instructions for the still life. Choose just a few objects, don't overload it, and just draw the basic shapes. There's not a whole lot of detail you have to have here. Just the basic shapes of what's in there for the first drawing. That says this is what it looks like in my still life. The second drawing, I want you to put, the instructions will say, draw it from a different viewpoint. Draw some objects while standing up. Draw a few from another side, and draw some by looking up at them from below. And this needs to be all in the same drawing. Once you see some of the Cubist paintings, you might understand that a little bit better. So we're just looking for 2 drawings. One is the main drawing of what your still life actually looks like. And the second one is drawing it from different perspectives. And it would be helpful if you looked at the PowerPoint first before you did that. So you can get a look at some of the Cubist drawings and see what that means to have different perspectives on one drawing. I think you'll have fun with it. Okay, now since we didn't have a project that we can work on, you guys have been working on these little silk screens. And I took, if you notice, I took off your sticker from both of these, and the silk screen is ready to print. And I wanted to show you how to print from it, because maybe you'll get these back someday. You might want to actually print it on something like I did here. By the way, Nick, you did a coffee cup, And I am such a fan of coffee that I did that one too. And so I printed it on this little bag that I have, and I just think that's going to be kind of fun to carry around. So here, this is NYX. You turn this face down on whatever you're going to print on and kind of make sure that what you're printing on is very smooth. And what you're going to do is you're going to put the ink here, and it's going to be forced through the screen, and the rest of it is going to be masked off. So I have some printing ink for that, screen printing ink. You can actually probably use acrylic paint, but it should have a fabric additive in it, and it should be like this consistency in order to do. So here's my black printing ink. And I'm going to spread this a little bit across the top here. And take a credit card, just an ordinary credit card, and pull that down through, and then carefully lift up. And there, oh, I missed a little bit down here. Didn't pull it down far enough. You can see that I didn't pull it down far enough. You need to be aware of that. That's your coffee cup. Now I'm going to, this should be washed off really soon after you're done with it, but I'll wait here and I think it'll be okay while I do Nicole's. So Nicole, you like this cactus plant. Same thing, make sure the surface you want to put it on is nice and smooth. Smooth it down. Take about that much, and I'm going to put it across the top here. Take my credit card and pull that ink, pull that ink down through. And now I'm going to make sure I make it all the way through. I didn't make it there. There we go. Okay. Carefully lift it off. And there's your cactus. So when you get these, you know, they're reusable many times over. The mask might start breaking down after a while because it's not that stable. But you can do, I've printed this one probably 5 times off of that. And it's still going to be good for a couple printings. It's a great way to do a basic design for t-shirts, not too detailed because of the sticker that you have to cut around. But it makes it, if you want to do like a family t-shirt thing or something like that, it's a great way to do that. I will save these for you guys and mail them to you if need be. But in the meantime, I'll clean them up and they'll be ready for you to take home if we ever meet again.